Let me thank the ranking member and also let me thank our chairman today. And let me thank all of our panelists today. I've been paying as close attention as I could being outside the room, but I have been watching and getting notes from my staff about today. And I know some discussion focused on Somalia. Yeah, at the risk of a little bit of duplication, I hope you won't mind, me just making a few notes. One is that I have probably as many, if not more, people of Somali descent in my district as anyone in Minneapolis. And we're very proud of this community. They do tremendous good things for our district. And one of the things that came up recently that is really important is that the Somali parliament passed recently an anti-money laundering bill. I don't know if you're aware of that. You probably are, but I'm glad that I can share that with you because one of the things that has been holding things up in terms of making progress on remittances is Somalia kind of emerging from its civil war and sort of stepping into its own and taking on its own sovereignty as a nation and responsibility for its financial system. I hope that that will help improve the situation for Somalia in receiving and remittances. They've made substantial progress. They're no longer a failed state. They are a fragile state, but they're making progress every single day. And I wonder if you would mind sharing your thoughts on this question. The Treasury Department, World Bank, and others are engaged with the Somali Central Bank. It's together they've made significant progress in weakening al-Shabaab. Mr. Wexler, I wonder if you might offer your views. What should Treasury, FinCEN, and other banking regulators do to help Somalia stabilize its financial system and receive remittances?
Yeah, I think you've touched on a very important question, a very important issue, because of course for countries that are very poor, that are in the process of developing and coming out of very difficult circumstances, legitimate legal remittances can be a very significant proportion of their gross domestic product. And we want to make sure that the people inside the United States who make their money legally are able to send it to their grandmother or their cousin to help them out. And as Secretary Lowry pointed out, the problem is from a commercial point of view, if you're a bank, there's very little profit to be made by doing business with Somalia, but there's a very high reputational risk at stake because of the challenges of actually knowing your customer. The response from the Treasury Department and wider U.S. policy has, I think, been halfway there. The good part about it is we're trying to provide technical assistance and get them to create the right laws and regulatory structures, which will take time. But even after doing it, it's unlikely to U.S. banks are not going to be rolling into downtown Mogadishu anytime soon. So if U.S. government policy is, as it should be, that we have a strategic national security interest in building up the government, the new legitimate government of Somalia. We've literally spent tens, scores, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars over the last two administrations on military activities, assistance activities, police activities, to help get ourselves into the position where we are now, which is when we're about to send an ambassador in there, hopefully right. Soon. Perhaps we could think of an innovative way to help sort of take on some of the risk onto the United States government's shoulders that we have traditionally put on the bank's shoulders. We've told them it's your job to know your customer, which is by and large the right thing to do. But in this case, we have a market gap. The market is not going to fill it at any time. So I wonder if I think it's worth exploring innovative ways for the United States to work more actively with the private sector to sort of de-risk their activities in dealing with Somalia.
Thanks for pointing that out. Does anybody else have a comment on what U.S. should be doing in Somalia to stabilize things? I mean, Mr. Lowry?
I think the World Bank is trying to figure out whether or not could you create some sort of a safe corridor for Somalia. I think those efforts need to be continued. I think the IMF could actually be of assistance in that area, but it is It's a difficult problem, and I know, Congressman, you've been very eloquent on raising this issue for a while now. It is a tough issue. I do think that it's important that it is that it's kept on the radar screen of both our Treasury Department as well as our Federal Reserve, and because they should continue to push to see whether there are solutions that get towards what Mr. Wexler is trying to get at.
Looks like I'm like 17 seconds over. I just want to get your response to this question. It seems to me that it's absolutely in the U.S. national interest to stabilize Somalia. We know now that failed states are attractive nuisance for terrorists. So it's in our interest to have stable, strong states so that they can partner with us to ward off these people. And yet, some of the policies that we've been pursuing, I think, aren't helping, because the remittances are going to Grandma, Cousin Joe. They're paying school fees, they're buying food. But are they going in suitcases? And if good money's going in suitcases, you know some bad money could also be getting there the same route. So in my view, somehow somehow coming up with something innovative is in our interest to do, because we want more transparency so we can have more accountability. What do y'all think about, how do you react to that statement I just made?
I guess broadly I agree. It's how innovative can one get, because in the end what will happen, of course, is that these are going to be private sector decisions as to whether or not I'm going to do business in that country or send remittances. Mr. Wexler raises a point, look, I've talked to people about it and they said, yeah, all right, if the federal government steps in and indemnifies me, maybe I will do this, right? But that's a hard thing for the federal government to do. So.
Mr. Laurie, I've never had a bank tell me they don't want to do any business in Somalia. They said, we do it. We're trying to make money. We'll do it. But the cost and the risk has got to be commensurate with our business model. And so that's really the nut to crack.
I completely agree, and it is a tough nut to crack. I mean, and I know that there are people at Treasury who are very concerned about it. They also want to crack that nut, but it's a cost-benefit analysis, just like you said. And I think that there are institutions that would like to do it, but the costs right now, at least the perceived costs, are too high. And so hopefully, if we could figure out a way to lower those costs, that would be helpful.
Thank you.